I left the window open with a small gap, knowing that this would possibly alert someone in Woonsocket that I was there. It was a risk worth taking. Bunny knew I was leaving, but didn't appear worried. They sat before my painting, lost in it somehow. I was more flattered than if it had been a king or queen. My art liked my art. How apt, but also how unexpected. It was like a child appreciating what their parent did for work, or so I'm told. A rare and marvelous feeling. I reminded Bunny that there was still a half head of lettuce in my bag and more than a few carrots. I shuddered that I would not see my Bunny again, but something in Simon Drake's affect made me think of cruelty to animals, even if I was being prejudicial. The sun was going down, but I hesitated to light a candle. That had been risky enough when I did so for the painting. Now with the window open, it would be too much. I sat on the mattress and looked over my work with the Bunny. It had crossed over into something that no longer belonged to me, as only the rarest work does. I was spoken for. It was doing the speaking. I needed only listen. I lay down and closed my eyes when I heard a distinct honk on the street, high-pitched like from a Vespa. Indeed it was. My ride had arrived. Bunny came onto my lap and I ran my hand on its fur. Nothing to worry about. Whatever happens, we will be together again. I know it. Simon Drake raised his visor and smiled crookedly. He was on a gold Vespa but wearing a motorcycle helmet. He looked like he wanted me to say something or be amused. He disembarked and took out a smaller helmet out of a rear compartment.
If you would, don't worry. I've been getting practice. Hop on.
I didn't want to hold on to his frame, but as we cascaded through the uneven, ill-maintained Rhode Island roads, it didn't take me long to hug his waist. What can I say? I'm somewhat of a physical coward. I always have been. I had spent time in war zones, in hovels more dangerous than the plague that surrounded it, and helped stage revolutions, but there is something in the unmitigated power of modern technology that doesn't sit well with an ancient part of myself. I'd rather survive a pirate ship full of rapiers and daggers than Boston at rush hour. After a few hours, we stopped at an all-night diner. We were maybe in Western Mass or New York State, I think. I wasn't paying close attention to signs. The diner's neon lights were soothing. There was only a few tired-looking travelers there. We took a booth, squeak of freshly Windexed laminate. Again, we took each other in. Before the awkwardness could devour our immortal souls, a diner matron rescued us with the kind of charm that would resuscitate the most cynical among us. I had pancakes with blueberries. Simon had a coffee and some toast. Then he ordered some scrambled eggs but did not eat them. Finally, I broke the silence. You will find your appetite will wane much more than before if you did not already have issues with appetite. You should remember to eat occasionally, that is, if you're not going to partake in other substances.
Yeah, thanks. To be honest, that was intel on you, by the way, that you didn't like blood. I said that to placate you. I'm not sure what I like. I'm not saying I want to, just I feel I should be honest.
I looked him over. A mysterious part of me wanted to strike him. Why? Well, I suppose obviously I did not trust him yet, but there was also something pitiable in a new vampire, I thought. Perhaps a part of me wanted to spare him his future pain or reach into the past and spare myself a passing fantasy. I made a show of eating hungrily, though I too wasn't that hungry. Yes, well, immortality is not unlike a drug. You will learn how things are different with time. You're welcome to ask me any questions, if you like.
Thanks.
His gaze was steady, or I could sense he was coming into a little more power. Or perhaps it was just the way he was lit with the neon from outside, reflecting on his face in a bright pink hue.
I'm not.
He paused and looked out the window. The neon flickered strangely as he gazed intensely at it. I wondered if his head was still hurting, his ears buzzing.
I guess I have a few questions, but part of me is enjoying the discovery, I guess.
May I ask you a few more questions, Mr. Simon? He took me in and nodded. Where was the charming, gregarious boy gone? Perhaps his head was hurting like I surmised. The red umbrella, can you tell me more about it?
You mean as a symbol?
Sure, but also in practicality. Your grandmother left one in the pawn shop across the way from me. I'm wondering if it contains something in it, like your backpack technology.
Maybe. I'm not at liberty to talk about the technology right now.
No more tit for tat, I see. And there's symbolism.
My grandfather was into Carl Jung. Archetypes, creating modern ones, if you follow. Right. He had a red umbrella that contained a blade. It was supposed to be mine. But anyway, pretty sick stuff. He was well trained with various weapons. Didn't show me much, unfortunately. The Red Umbrella Society was started by him many years ago. It was a secret society. It started small. I mean, do you really have to ask, Neto? Its goal was to kill vampires. But its goals have changed. From what I understand, it changed as the vampires changed. It understands we're not all bad. Anyway, along the way, some in the organization became obsessed with gaining immortality. That was more my grandmother's jam.
And the anti-aging society, they sell immortality, I presume.
Well, like I said, it's more of a front, money-making. It's actually a subsidiary of a self-help kind of group called Life Vein, which Red Umbrella owns. I was brought up both inside and outside of it. I'd say I have the best of the teachings, the purest stuff. Others get a watered-down version. Very rarely someone gets recruited to the RUS, but yeah. No, they don't have any cure for mortality. Mostly they just sell repackaged lotions and oils. Nothing groundbreaking. Anti-aging is a term in Life Vein for something uniquely positive, but I won't bore you with the jargon.
He motioned the waitress in a cavalier fashion for more coffee. She smiled and asked if everything was okay, and I smirked back as Simon avoided her eye contact. He took a few more sips.
Ready? We have a bit more of a drive.
I was more reluctant to hold Drake by the waist and less anxious about the turns as we wound deeper into the New England countryside. I even managed to close my eyes and empty my mind for a moment. A glimpse of Bonnie, my painting, the neon in a diner, the dismissal of the kindly diner waitress, his reluctance to tell me about the technology he had been employing but seemed transparent about the structures of this society. Good vampires, bad vampires, vampire hunters, sure, this had been something we'd been aware of for ages. But the whole organized society, surely created in the years since we had been less than active. Perhaps the collective, or what was left of it, had been aware. I did not know. Welcome to Vermont, the Green Mountain State, the sign said. Simon slowed down as we entered a small, faintly lanterned town. He raised his visor.
I almost went to college here. I was homeschooled, so my grandmother was literally going to forge a bunch of papers to get me in. I was excited to go. Never knew many kids outside of... Anyway, right before I was about to go, plans changed.
I didn't know if you wanted me to say something. Finally, I asked, "What is it called?"
Bennington. Anyway, we chose it by location, but who cares? I don't think I could go now.
Why not? I asked, but he had already closed his visor and begun accelerating until I again had to hold his waist out of my rising concern. After a while in a forested area, we took a small, private, unpaved road. Simon slowed down, and I was able to release and gather my thoughts. The fence was foreboding. The floodlights flickered and then lit haltingly with our approach, like guardsmen awoken from a night's watch.
Don't worry,
said Simon.
We're going in the back entrance. VIPs only. You're safe with me.
He rode the Vespa partially into the forest and we disembarked. I was sore but tried not to show it. Simon lit a flashlight and pointed it at me.
Pockets? I have to search you, okay?
He gruffly searched my hoodie, my front and back pant pockets, and around my socks.
Shoes.
I did as he said. He looked them over and, satisfied, had me put them back on. What choice did I have? All I had was the cash in my back pocket. He took it from me. I suppose this was the VIP treatment.
Sorry. Technically, this could be seen as art. Okay.
He smiled.
Let's go see our boy, shall we? Suddenly my appetite's returned.
Every fiber of my being detected danger as we entered into this back fenced-off entrance. Simon waved at the security camera, then waved a badge at a sensor. The lock sounded like something from a military base. We entered a dark yard and approached a fortress-like structure with tiny prison-like windows. There was light inside, but otherwise the forest supplied only the faint sound of the rustling wind. Again we approached the door, 2 waves, and we walked in. A fluorescent hallway and concrete walls, a door to our right. The door buzzed and locked behind us. Simon paced in front of me, a door buzzed down the hall and opened. 2 tall, masked men in black flanked Simon as he slowly backed away from me. They pointed guns at me.
Sorry, Neto, but life is long and hopefully we'll find forgiveness. You have to understand I've been a vampire for only a few weeks, as you know, but I've been human for much longer. I have debts to pay before I can make my own way, so try not to make a fuss. I'll make sure they don't hurt you.
His expression was perhaps like regret. His words offered little condolence. A door opened to the side of me. The gunman motioned for me to enter. Much of this was not unexpected, but I had thought of little to say to Simon at this possibility, though before I entered I caught his eye once more. Well then, Mr. Drake, you spoke of ethics earlier. Perhaps I could interest you in one more exchange. The guards began to approach me, but Drake put his hand up.
Go on.
You want to know about that person, the one I did not tell you about, so I will tell you, but since I'm not in a position to barter equally, I ask simply one thing. Drake nodded. If you could simply give Harry a message, I will tell you about her when you want.
Agreed.
If you could tell Harry simply this, try to have an open mind. Simon nodded and I smiled at him as friendly as I could. At that I entered the room and it locked behind me. Now all that was left was to wait and to hope, although the second to me was a little more out of practice.